Am I the asshole for not acknowledging my dad's child as my brother? So my dad, 47 male, had an affair with my now stepmom, 36 female, around 13 years ago. I was pretty young and therefore did not understand the situation as I do now. My stepmom became pregnant 2 years after the affair and had my half-brother, now 10. Before the pregnancy, me and my actual brother would sleep at my dad's and see him very often. But when my half-brother came along, it quickly stopped. Over the past 10 years, me and my actual brother's relationship with our dad is strained, particularly between my brother and my dad, in which effort is absent on both sides. However, until very recently, I have tried my hardest to remain a good relationship with, even when it's been difficult. My dad got married in July 2021, and since then, we have not seen my stepmom nor been to their house. So, for the actual situation, I recently went. I had a conversation with my dad about him basically being a piece of shit, and how he has never done anything for us. I specifically brought up the situation with my stepmom, and how we have not seen her in 4 years, which I don't believe is just coincidence. For context, my dad is a police officer, and for my entire life, it has been the number one excuse as to why he can't see us, or why he couldn't help my mom out, and also why we never saw her, as she is also in the police. After I brought the situation with that up, he used his age-old excuse, and this is where I might lose people. I quickly defended my comment with the fact that I don't wish for that relationship with my stepmom, and how I thought she was a cunt for being so cruel to kids that were there before her. Yes, a very childish comment, but I think I'm justified. He obviously saw this as a way to bring up my relationship with my half-brother, stating that I don't make an effort with him whenever I see him, and that I don't know him. I quickly replied with, "Why would I make the effort? He's not my real brother, and he never will be. I don't care about knowing him, or even just home in general." My dad then told me I was awful, and that he doesn't understand my POV when I don't make an effort either. I can admit I don't make an effort with this child, because I truly don't care about him and don't see him as my brother, but I don't believe I am at fault. Because of the lack of visits with my dad, which was usually a 2-hour visit to my grand's house every 2 weeks, I don't know this child at all, and have barely seen him as my dad didn't always bring him along. I don't think that this is a situation I have created, but rather one they have. I can't lie and not admit that I do hold resentment for this child, but I don't show it, as I never fucking see him. This situation is definitely not his fault. Please tell me if I'm in the wrong. I can accept it. Updated. I have read the comments and thought I should add more context, as I've seen that my post doesn't really make sense. I asked if I was the asshole, and it seems like I am at least a little. That's why I asked. This isn't something I've created, but it is partly my fault. It remains as I am 17, and the child is only 10, so I do hold more responsibility. I do want to make it clear that I'm not stopping a relationship that exists. I've never had one. If that was the case, I wouldn't have asked the question. I'm not walking away and abandoning a relationship. I'm simply not starting one 10 years late. The resentment I hold isn't actually towards him, but to my dad, it's just easy to direct it to him. But I want to again make clear, I don't take it out on him, as I don't have a relationship with him and never have. He lives in ignorance as a 10-year-old should. I'm never told him, again a 10-year-old, that this is the way I feel and never in a million years would. I'm also not an idiot. Yes, biologically, he is my brother. But I think where I've made the mistake is comparing him to my brother that I grew up with and have a real relationship with, and for that, I am the asshole. I also never realized the police thing is a known thing, which is interesting. Am I the asshole for telling my family I'm prioritizing myself over what they want? I, 18 female, have recently been getting into problems with my family. My mother and father are not together, and I live with my mother in a different state, so contact with my father's side of the family is difficult. Recently, my grandmother on my father's side, who I'll call D, had a stroke. My father didn't tell me until about a week later, and I immediately went to go see her. Instead of wanting a trained nurse to take care of her, she wanted me, an untrained college student with no prior medical experience, to be her full-time caretaker for $300 every week. Dee knew, however, way before her stroke, that I would be in college full-time for the next couple years, in a completely different state. She at first called me and explained that she would love if I could come live with her to take care of her. This would mean I'd have to take her to PT every weekend, cook and clean her entire two-story house by myself, buy all her groceries, take care of her dog, take care of her garden, and also be available at all hours of the day whenever she needed to bathe or use the bathroom. I also need to point out that I have not been close with that side of my family for about 10 years. I calmly explained multiple times I wasn't experienced enough. I lived in a different state, and I was just starting college. She eventually gave up, and I thought that was the end of it. On New Year's, my father, who I completely cut contact with, called me drunkenly to basically beg me to care for Dee. I told him no, that once again I just couldn't do it. He proceeded to call me selfish, and multiple things I won't say here. I hung up on him and had a good cry on New Year's. As the ball dropped. About a week later, when I think it's all over, my mother knocks on my door. She tells me that Dee and my aunt and uncle have been texting and calling her, under my word, to tell her to force me to go take care of Dee since Dee will not accept the nurse they picked out. She then tells me that she told them I would. I was mortified since she knew that I had classes in just a few days, and I didn't have the money to go to a whole different state to go care for her. I told her very firmly that this was not an option, and she would have to tell them I said no, and I would be prioritizing myself. She said that I could just drop out of the college I applied to, without her help by the way, and move in with Dee and take care of her. I told her that would not be happening. She rolled her eyes and made me feel like it was my fault I was embarrassing her by making her call them and tell them that I would not be going. I'm being repeatedly called selfish for not dropping everything when I'm just getting my life together. I'm a recovering people pleaser, which means everyone around me assumes I will give up everything for them purely because they are family. Right now, everything is quiet, and I'm going to my classes and looking for a job, but I know the phone calls and guilt tripping are coming. So am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for lying to my friend about not being able to go to her birthday? For some context, my friend had invited me and a couple of her other friends, who I don't know and have never met, to her birthday, which she was going to be celebrating February 13th. Her and her friends often do illicit drugs together. I, however, do not agree with this and do not participate. When I found that out, I felt uncomfortable about going to her birthday. As I knew that they enjoyed doing this before and during nights out, my friend knows that I do not agree with this, but over time has tried to encourage me to, which I have refused, and told her my boundaries. As I knew I would have been uncomfortable being around this, especially with people I don't know, I decided not to go, but instead of telling her everything I've just said, I told her that my boyfriend had surprised me with a weekend away, as it is Valentine's that weekend, so I wouldn't be able to go anymore. I thought that she might be less upset about this excuse than the latter. She ended up being furious and accused me of choosing my boyfriend over her, even though if this hypothetical situation were real, it would not have been my fault as he planned it without my knowledge, and I'm not going to ask the man to cancel and waste his money. So I thought I was sparing her feelings. But it turns out now I'm just a girl who chooses her boyfriend over her friends. Am I the asshole?